You're just joining us, you're tuned to the Foxworth Theory, and I'm your host, Eugenia Foxworth. And today's guest is Flo Anthony, author of the novel Last Call with a Deadly Diva. Now, Flo, you were also the first Black reporter to work on the gossip column of the New York Post and the National Examiner. Tell us about that.
Well, I left the New York Post in 1994. We were going through a hard time then. Peter Calico, you would know him well because you're in real estate. He had bought the Post, but then for some reason went through a period in life where money was low, our paychecks were bouncing. It was crazy. So then we needed to bring somebody else in there that could buy the Post, because the reason that Rupert Murdoch had let it go is back then you weren't allowed to own a newspaper and a television station in the same market. That stuff, Ted Kennedy was a big proponent of that in the Senate for that not to be happening. But now you're allowed to do all that. So then Murdoch was able to come back. But a guy named Stephen Hoffenberg bought the Post. And this is all documented this summer on a Showtime documentary series called Gossip. And it showed us Cindy Adams in there saying, have our phones been cut off yet? Can you dial 310 from that? But a guy named Stephen Hoffenberg, Cindy actually brought him in, but little did we know, and he's a friend of mine, that he was under indictment for a Ponzi scheme. So he was out, and when Rupert was able to come back, but it was still so iffy. And I got offered a job with Stephen Hoffenberg. He hadn't gone to jail yet, but he said I could have my own column in Her New York. And he actually was paying me a lot more. I think he offered me $80,000 a year. At the Post, I was making like 40. So I said, well, if it just lasts for a minute, I'm going to go do this. Everybody encouraged me to. But then when it was closing, the National Examiner offered me my own column. And so I didn't go back to the Post. I went to the National Examiner. And that's when I became the first Black columnist. I don't even know if they've had one since, to be honest.
I don't know.
At a tabloid.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was just thinking about that. I was going to sidestep and say, were you there when Richard Johnson was at the Post?
Yes, in fact, he's one of my best friends. And yeah, he wrote a beautiful article on Last Call for a Deadly Diva, because now he's at the New York Daily News. And so, I worked on Page 6 with Richard, but not originally. The way I got over there was Richard left to go work for Robin Leach. And that didn't last that long. So then he came back to the Post. And that's how I worked with him on that portion of Page 6.
Okay.
Or that regime of Page 6.
I was shadowing you because of my former life, not as a journalist, but I knew the people that they would cover me when I did certain things, which was amazing. And I didn't meet you until the past few years of my life now. But
yeah, and I was so excited to meet you. I just, when Angela said he was representing you, I said, oh my God, that's the classiest, beautiful, most beautiful woman in town. She's just so classy.
Oh, thank you.
Diggity.
But let's get on about you, not me. You also have a syndicated column that reaches the urban community. Can you name some of the independent newspapers that publish your work?
Yeah, right now, Go With The Flow is published in Caribbean Life, the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, Columbus Times, and I'm going to start with a new paper, NJ Urban News, next week.
Thank you. Do you still love what you do? If so,
I love it so much, Eugenia. It's a joy to wake up every morning and be able to do what you love. I'm just so grateful to God. And I like every aspect of it. I don't like one more than the other. I love my radio show. I love writing books because, you know, I write fiction and Black Hollywood murder mysteries, even though Last Call for a Deadly Diva takes place mainly out in the Hamptons and a little bit in New York City. And then they moved to Vegas and it ends in Monaco. So it kind of moves around, but originally it was Black Hollywood murder mysteries, but this time the characters move around. But with a fiction book, you can do anything you want to do. You can let your mind just go to any realm it wants to go to. So I love that. I love writing the columns because I love people and I love writing about all these celebrities and the glamour and the show business aspect of it. And, you know, even my online magazine, blacknoir.nyc, I really like everything I do. I like working with boxing once again. It's been wonderful.
okay. Now, what's different about radio and journalism now than when you began your journey?
The most thing that's different about it all is the internet. Excuse me, the presence of the internet. Excuse me, you used to be able to be out here exclusively with a story, maybe even 2 days. Now you can't be exclusive with a story for 5 minutes because right away it gets picked up on the internet, then everybody else has the story. So that's the biggest difference. Excuse me, I'm so congested with allergies and things. That's the biggest story.
Yeah.
It's such a big difference and it's very annoying to me.
Well, I can understand. Yeah, I wondered. I mean, so the paparazzi aren't jumping out of the bushes anymore like they used to.
They still are. You know, when there's something big going on, let's take Alec Baldwin, you know, accidentally killing the cinematographer on the set of the movie Rust the other week. They're staking out Alec Baldwin everywhere he moves. They've discovered he was up in Vermont, paparazzi right there. Then discovered he was back in Manhattan, paparazzi right there. So yes, if it's a hot topic, they're there, hiding, you know, jumping out of every which way.
Okay. Now, who do you listen to today? What journalists do you like listening to and getting your gossip from?
Well, I go back home to Page 6 all the time because they still are, it's not as cutting edge as it was when I was there, but they still get the you know, the bigger scoops. Now, Richard, you know, for 2 years, he had retired from the Post 2 years back at the Daily News. So I have a sneaky suspicion that he had a 2-year non-compete, that he couldn't go anywhere. So he's very, very good too. And then my mentor, Cindy Adams, you could take what she says, cash it, and get the money at the bank. That's how good she is. And she's 91 years old and still in the game. That's just how good she is. She also wrote a very beautiful article about my book.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, she they're who I trust. All these junior flip people out here and Johnny come latelys, I don't think that much of them. I have to be honest. I just don't. There's another guy, he's pretty good, B. Scott. He has a blog. He's out of Hollywood. He's pretty good. And a woman, Sandra Rose, out of Atlanta. She's not bad either. They're pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And for you to say that, that's the ultimate compliment.
Yeah, they're good. They come up with some good stuff. They really do. You know, and it's firsthand, not second, third, and fourth.
Now, on to something else. When you're not on the go with Flo, what do you do in your free time? Now, be careful.
I don't have a lot of free time. If I get some, I like to sleep. I really, the pandemic didn't hit me quite as hard with the having to be inside as it did other people, because I've worked from home for a very long time. And so I don't mind quiet time. I read, I watch television, as I said, I rest. And then I travel a lot with Michael Spinks because I make appearances for him. So we've been traveling around the world for 5 years. And in 2020, the pandemic came along and you couldn't move around. But we were back, I guess the height of the pandemic, of course, in New York, we lost, 800 people a day throughout April and then in toward May. But it was just a horror story. But we actually started doing private signings for him, where you just go in and one person has all these pictures and stuff for him to sign. It's not much interaction in August of 2020. And then we went to the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. And I said, we make it out of this place alive. We can make it out of anywhere alive, because it was so hard making people keep up masks and people wanted to shake hands with him. And I was going crazy. I was pouring hand sanitizer. I was yelling, no handshaking. I was going nuts. But God is good. We made it out of there alive, and we've kind of been on the road ever since. But they finally did one autograph show, the first one, and it wasn't even that big, but pretty big, out at Hofstra University last month. But for the most of it, it's still the private signings, where you're in a room by himself signing, items that promoters have for him to sign.
So you basically have been able to stay relevant during the pandemic and keeping your name and brand in the eye of the public. I mean, and this, could you tell me a little more about it? I know you were with
you know what? It wasn't so bad, because Super Radio Network, that's who syndicates my radio show, they sent out something, are you going to be able to keep this up during the pandemic? In March, when we shut down in 2020, when the city shut down, I believe it was March 17th was the exact day. And I said, yeah, then I was going to, how am I going to do that? Where are celebrities going to go? But you had a bunch of these crazy young kids on the West Coast that were still going out every night. It was amazing, the stuff that was happening, and that was going on out there. So there was still gossip every day, and still stories every day and every week. And then also, with the way COVID was impacting them. So since we were on quarantine, I started saying quarantine hot new couple alert, quarantine divorce alert, quarantine marriage alert.
Love it.
I changed it into something else. And in my book, Last Call for a Deadly Diva, it mentions the pandemic throughout it, because you can't have a book that's come out in 2021 but not talking about a pandemic. And then I talk about, the vaccination, because as we got into 2021, the vaccination now being available. And my character Valerie says that she got her second shot. And we talk about how, she has to have a dinner party outside, due to the pandemic. Otherwise, she couldn't have had people over. And that we have a black polo team called the Dumas Diamond Polo Club. And we talk about how all of the players are either tested almost daily or have vaccinations, because at that time, you had to be 65 and over when I was writing the book to get the vaccination. Then it opened up, and these polo players are younger. So I had to include the pandemic in that. You just have to be creative. And just like I said, I'm just so grateful to be alive, because so many people aren't, and it hasn't stopped. And so you can't let your guard down at all.
Now, I know that you also publish a Black online magazine called blacknoir.nyc. Tell us about this online publication.
Well, it's kind of it's an extension of everything else I do, and it's actually very pretty. My art director, and he's going to retire. I don't know what I'm going to do, James Chin, but it's stories and photographs and breaking news.
Hi, this is
It's
Eugenia
really very visual
Foxworth.
and very
Thank
pretty.
you
He's done a
so much
wonderful
for
job. I
tuning
just
into the
hope I'm
Foxworth
trying to tell
Theory.
him not
We
to
are
retire,
celebrating
not
going
tell him
into our
please don't
third
retire, but I'm
season.
hoping that I can
Can you
find
believe
a
that?
young
We
person
are
that,
opening our
is that
doors to
graphically
sponsorships for the Foxworth Theory. For more
skilled like he is,
information,
because
go
it's
to
very pretty site.
thefoxworththeory.com or email us at pr
Let's
at
take a short break and we will be
thefoxworththeory.com.
right back
Thank you.
with our very special guest, Flo Anthony. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're tuned into the Foxworth Theory, and I'm your host, Eugenia Foxworth, and today's guest is Flo Anthony. Now, let's get started. How did you begin in the world of journalism?
I always could write from a little kid. I would write plays and short stories. And when I got a little older into high school, I was the youth page reporter for the Ann Arbor News. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so it all just kind of came naturally to me. I really didn't want to be a journalist. I actually came to New York City to be an actress. But I worked, did quite a bit of work. But I started working for my manager, Toby Gibson, and that's how I kind of switched over into like PR and that type of work. And then I started writing columns. I wrote a column called Keep Punching, a sports column for the Black American newspaper. And that's how I got to the New York Post. They actually wanted to hire a Black woman to be the agate clerk in the sports department. That's the person that does like the basketball boxes and the hockey boxes and all those sorts of things. So the racing stuff that you see, all of the grid work. And so that's how I got to the New York Post, and it all just kind of grew from there.
Thank you. But when did you know that journalism was calling?
I guess when it just kind of happened, it was a regular job because I was teaching part-time. I was doing a lot of things to act. I started doing public relations for a lot of different boxers. I met this guy, Harold Weston. He was a contender. And at that time, he was working at the Garden, putting together boxing matches. And I had a cable show called Go With The Flow. And he had a guy, Ron Scott, had Eddie Mustafa Muhammad and Saul Mamby. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad at that time was the WBA light heavyweight champion, and Saul Mamby was the WBC super lightweight champion. And so I started doing PR for them, and that's how the whole sports thing grew, and the columns and everything. And it just kind of happened. Sometimes life has a different path for you than you planned for it. God has other visions for you, and that's kind of what happened to my life. I was good at what I did, and things just started to grow.
Okay, and on that note, can you mention any celebrity highlights that are the most memorable to the public?
Boy, there's so many. I started out with this cable show also on Manhattan cable called Go With The Flow. And I met a gentleman who passed away in the 80s. He was one of the early people to pass away from AIDS, James Johnson, a great mentor of mine. And so he saw my show, and he got me to interview Sylvester Stallone. And from there, I interviewed, oh my gosh, so many people. The great soccer player, Pelé. They were actually in the same movie, Stallone and Pelé. And those interviews, I started doing all these A-list interviews with these people in my 20s. And it just grew from there. And every time I seemed to interview people, they became friends. I interviewed LaToya Jackson, and I had originally met the Jacksons in like late 70s at Disney World. It was LaToya, Michael, Randy, and Janet. And I knew her, but then when in the 90s, when we reconnected, early 90s, 90, 91, I went to Paris with her in 1992. We became best friends. Wynton Marsalis, I interviewed him, not interviewed him, I was introducing him to someone, but then he called me, he said, well, you sound very nice. maybe can I just talk to you sometime? You're very easy to talk to. So I would you talk to these people and interview them, and they became my friends. So I've had a great career knowing celebrities. I mean, there's been a few downsides to it. A couple of people I didn't get along that great with, but life goes on. But it's been a good career as a gossip columnist. I've tried not to do anybody any harm, put it that way.
I know that. I know that very well because I follow you now in a couple of the local papers. And
thank you.
You're welcome. In an era when women in sports journalism was rare and very few, how did you succeed in that arena, being one of the first ladies in the field?
Yeah, at the New York Post, I really wasn't just the first Black woman in that sports department. I was the first woman. But I think part of it is because sports has always been part of my forte. My father played college football. Excuse me, I'm all nasally here. Played college football, actually not professional football, but his whole life revolved around football and sports. He called everybody a rookie or and everything. So I came out of this great sports household, and so sports was just all my forte. I loved football. Football is still my passion. And then, once I started working for these boxers and met all these boxers, I began to love boxing. In fact, I'm being inducted into the 2022 National Boxing Hall of Fame, the first female journalist to be inducted into that Hall of Fame, because I represented 12 world champion boxers. And it's all kind of come full circle because, I'm working with Michael now again. And we've done so well the last 5 years. So I think that I succeeded because of my passion for the sport. And then I went over to the entertainment department. They moved me over there, and I was very upset about it. I felt that I had failed the entire Black community of New York City, that I couldn't be in the sports department. But they kept saying it's a better job. It's a day job, because at that time I worked 7 at night to 2 in the morning. It's more money. And they saw that I had a bachelor's degree in fine arts. So that's how I went over to entertainment department. And then I kept breaking stories. When Mike Tyson married Robin Givens, when Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger got married, when John McEnroe and Tatum O'Neal even got married, I just kept breaking stories. And that's how they moved me over to the renowned Page Six.
Now, Flo, you have a new novel out called The Last Call with a Deadly Diva. Tell us about this book.
Well, it's the 4th in a series, a deadly series. My first book was called Keeping Secret, Telling Lies. And that's when you met this character, Valerie Rollins, who was the most popular Black gossip columnist in America. And that's when she became friends with Rome Nyland, who was an NFL Hall of Famer turned private investigator. And they're trying to find out who killed his cousin, Jennifer Sands, who was an actress. So that's where you met these characters. And then the next book was called and Valerie, then that's where they met a blackbillionaire.com person, an electronics whiz, Victor Dumas, and his son, Vance Dumas, who at that time was a Black jockey, but then his horse. And there at that time, also there's a serial killer running around. And so they're trying to find out who it is. And so the third book was called One Last Deadly Play. In that book, Valerie and Victor get married. Unfortunately, he passed away. I had everybody saying, why did you kill Victor off? Well, it's because I had this other character, Royale Jones was his name, is his name. And he's a former baseball player who Valerie was in love with in college. And now 30 years later, they found each other again. So I couldn't just kill Victor. I had him die of cancer very tragically and all. But at any rate, this is the final. I'm like saying I'm done with these characters after this book. I'm going to write a Christmas novel. This is going to be my next book. But this is the final one. And in this book, once again, you have a serial killer. And, no one is figuring out who this is, but there's a mysterious woman. Her name is Aurora Darden. And who is this mysterious woman and where did she pop up from? And that's why you have your last call for a deadly diva.
It's exciting, intriguing. And I was going to say, is it loosely based on someone's life?
Huh?
Are some of the characters loosely based on someone's life?
Well, the Valerie, of course, is me.
Yeah.
And in Deadly Stuff Players, more so than the other ones, some things that happened to her have actually happened to me in real life. And Rome Nyland is kind of loosely based on both Marcus Allen and Willie Gault, who of course are, former NFL players. Because Willie Gault, his email even had 007 in it, which would be private investigator. And so that character is kind of loosely based on them, more the physical of them, not, actually, who they are. And that's about it. The rest of those characters I made up. They're not based on anybody. Royale is probably loosely based on a lot of men that I've known in life. Not that I knew that many.
I'm definitely getting the book.
But he's got a based on that.
I'll become a snoop.
Victor, there was this guy that he had pharmacies and he sold the pharmacies as a real life character, man. He wasn't Black though. And he started a pharmaceutical company. So that's where I got the idea for Victor's character. And I got the idea for Royale because there's actually two of them. There's a Royale and a Rolando. And I got that idea from a real life story too, where a baseball player's cousin killed him and they looked enough alike for that cousin to impersonate him. So I got all that going on in my book.
Thank you so much. Now, I'm sorry, I can't wait. But what would you say to a young man or woman wanting to get into radio and journalism? What advice would you give them about getting into this business?
Well, first of all, I want to suggest to them that they get a college education. Because I think now young people see all these hip hop stars and they don't believe you have to have an education. I mean, college campuses, unless it's an HBCU, which the enrollment is down heavily there too, that you rarely see Black men in college anymore. I mean, it's a shame. And that's my first suggestion to anyone. Even you don't even have to major in journalism, but just get your degree in something. Majoring in journalism is a very good idea because I've always been doing radio. Even in high school, I was part of the Radio Guild, and we had the little high school radio station there in Ann Arbor. My life is a little different because I've been doing this stuff since a little kid. My mom used to think I was an alien. She doesn't know where I came from. Because I could just do things. And but that's my first thing. And then, I know this blogging thing, it can get you out there. So I guess it's something that they should look at too. Find a subject that you're good at, be it sports, be it entertainment, or something, or even be it, with medicine or things like this, electronic things, go beyond whatever and find something that you're good at and then write about it. And it's always good, in my opinion, to, try to intern or get like a small job at, if you're an African-American, with the African-American newspapers, because they need help, they need content. Everybody needs content now. And that's a way to get your foot in the door also. And, you got to just also make yourself visible somehow. You have to find that niche. The problem with journalism is print journalism does not pay much. It's a very meager living. I'm here to testify. But radio gets a little better, even though radio has become a dying breed because, we have we have now podcasts, we have YouTube. There's just so much out there. or create a YouTube channel. Even a friend of mine created a YouTube channel and is doing well with that. So you have to be creative. You have to think beyond the box. But television, I have to say, is where, if you are a journalist, maybe be a photojournalist, because that's where real money comes from. The other is just kind of, in between. The cost of living gets more and more every day. You have to. And I also like to suggest for people to have at least 3 different income streams, because if one leaves or another leaves, at least you still have something that you could fall back on.
Okay, now getting back to you, what defines your legacy?
I don't know. I guess I'll leave a lot of it. I'll leave my books. My writings will still be around if anybody, but I think my books mostly be my legacy, because books will still be there for years and years to come.
Okay, and what are you most proud of?
Just being able to be, in my late 60s and still be in the game, like Cindy being 90 and still in the game. Just being able to still be there doing things, for someone like you to want to interview me, or people to care about what I say or I think. That's very important to me.
So what is next for you?
Oh boy. I don't know. Like I said, I want to write a Christmas novel because I love, love, love Christmas. My Christmas thing, I'm in these Christmas clubs on Facebook, though some people are crazier than me about Christmas. And now the big deal going around New York City is in the newspapers, on TV, is when do you put up a Christmas tree? So I say that tree's in Rockefeller Center. So then, since that tree is there, go forward. But I guess because we're coming out of such a dark time, that Christmas gives people a little bit of hope to see the lights twinkling and everything. So I say go for it. So next for me, I think it's going to be right now, being excited for the holidays.
Okay, then I love Christmas too. Love, love, love it.
I knew I liked you.
So now, Flo, how can everyone follow you on social media and keep up with your journey?
Okay, on Facebook, it's Florence Anthony. Now I got all these crazy names. Twitter is at Banana Nose Kid. And everybody says, why is it Banana Nose Kid? My cousin passed away in 2011. And I went to clean out her apartment. And I didn't know that much about Twitter then, that you shouldn't, and all her passwords, to everything.
Hi, this is Eugenia Foxworth. Thank you so much for tuning into the Foxworth Theory. We are celebrating going into our 3rd season. Can you believe that? We are opening our doors to sponsorships for the Foxworth Theory. For more information, go to thefoxworththeory.com or email us at pr@thefoxworththeory.com.
This has just
Thank
been wonderful.
you.
I'm sorry that I guess I've caught some kind of cold or something. I'm sorry that I'm a little nasally here between the allergies and the temperature dropping and all, but it'll be all right.
You are fine. You're whole and complete. You are fine. And
yeah, I even have my booster shot. I'm getting my flu shot next week, so I'm in good shape.
Well, I just want to thank you. I want to thank everyone for joining us today on the Foxworth.